Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Barbara Hamm Lee. Whether it's gastric banding, stomach stapling, the gastric sleeve, or gastric bypass, bariatric or weight loss surgery to some is the miracle way to lose weight. Or is it? Just how large do you have to be to qualify for bariatric surgery? How dangerous is it? Is there any guarantee that you won't regain the weight you lose? And why is it that African Americans are less likely to use the surgery as a weight loss option? We have the answers to all your questions about weight loss surgery on Another View on Health right after this news from NPR.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Hamm Lee. It's the fourth Friday of the month, which means it's Another View on Health with my co-host, cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby. Hi, Keith. Welcome back from your vacation.
I tell you, it was too short. Way too short.
You had a good time, though, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Virgin Islands. I would always tell people to go down there and enjoy it. That's the prettiest water down there you ever want to see. Then you come back up here. Just quickly, my youngest is 10, and she said, "Daddy, I'm going to do a YouTube video for the president and tell him to clean up this water down here." I had the best laugh at that. I said, I'm going to put you up there. I said, he would appreciate you saying that.
He would appreciate that. I love that. Oh, my gosh. Well, today we're going to talk about the surgical way to lose weight. But first, Saturday, June 27th is National HIV Testing Day, and there are free tests being offered for teens. So joining us by phone to tell us about it is Dr. John Chittick with Teen AIDS Peer Corps. Hi, Dr. Chittick. How you doing?
Hello, Barbara. How are you? Thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome. So tell us what's going on tomorrow.
Well, it's the National HIV Testing Day, and the CDC has recommended for over 7-8 years now that every American 13 and up get annually tested. It's ignored by almost everybody. Most families don't even know about it and don't think, of course, that their teenagers need to be tested. So what we're doing is we're offering free oral swab testing. What's unusual is we do this in public venues, at a public park tomorrow at Northside Park on Tidewater Drive. We're testing them with oral swab technology. It takes 20 minutes. We show the teens how to use the test themselves. All results are kept private. That's the most important thing. And we do explain that sometimes there's a false positive reading or something like that, and they should always get a second opinion. But the whole idea is to get young people more aware of their status.
And the testing, they get the results right there?
Right there in 20 minutes. Again, at around 17, 18 minutes, I look at the where the tests look like they're going. If it looks like it might wind up being positive, I talk to them and say, we'll talk later. But they always come usually with friends and sometimes with parents. And we only do 17 to 20. That's why I want to explain, because that's the FDA regulations to buy these kits in a drugstore.
Mm-hmm. So, and is this HIV in this area, is it a huge problem among teens?
Yes. Well, this is the issue. We really don't know, because only about 88-90% of teenagers and even young college students have ever been tested even once in their life. So we don't know how much is going around, but we do know from STIs like chlamydia and gonorrhea, Norfolk ranks at the top of the United States per capita, number 2 for chlamydia, number 3 for gonorrhea. So we have a huge sexually transmitted infection rate in this area. We do know that young people are starting sex, the majority, by 16, and Norfolk is no different from all the surveys and the interviews I've been doing with young people. Mm-hmm. So we know they're starting sex earlier, and a lot of them are not using protection. And the problem, Barbara, I just want to emphasize this to people, is now in Virginia, you cannot teach any type of realistic sexual education in schools like they did 5 years ago. Now it's abstinence only before marriage, and teachers can be fired, teachers can get in trouble if they do try to talk about this with kids. The young people are told to go home and ask their parents, which for a lot of kids is impossible to do.
Okay, so Go ahead.
Yeah.
So what tomorrow, what age group can come get tested and what times?
Okay, for free, 17 to 20. They need to bring a photo ID. If they're 16, they want to come with a parent that'll vouch for them. That's fine. It'll be 11:30 to 12:30, and it'll be right on Tidewater Drive. You'll be able to see it right from the street at the front of Northside Park, and we'll do as many as we can. But, Barbara, it looks like there might be rain, so we're just not sure where this is going.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Dr. John Chittick with Teen AIDS Core Group, and we hope that you all will go out and get tested. Thank you for that information. So we talk a lot about weight on Another View, particularly because obesity runs so rampant in the African American community. 50% of the Black community in this country is overweight or obese, and obesity leads to all kinds of health issues, from heart disease to high blood pressure to stroke to diabetes, and the list goes on and on and on. One way to lose weight is through surgery, but there are a lot of questions and misunderstanding about what bariatric surgery is all about. Here to enlighten us is Dr. David Salzberg, bariatric surgeon and director of Riverside Weight Loss Center in Hampton. Hi, David. How are you?
Hi, Barbara. How are you?
Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, we're so happy to have you here. So people do think of bariatric surgery, some people, that this is the panacea. This is the greatest thing. All I got to do is get this surgery and I'm golden. I'm going to lose a bunch of weight and it's done. Is it really the miracle surgery that everybody thinks of it?
It works very well. It's not a miracle. It has a lot of scientific background, and it takes a lot of work on the part of the patient. This is not some kind of magic bullet. In life, there are no magic bullets. We got to work for what we want to produce. Mm-hmm. And while weight loss surgery is a mode to get to where you want to be, it takes a lot of impetus on the part of the patient.
I think people don't realize it. While it took them a long time to gain the weight, it takes a long time to lose the weight, regardless of what you do.
It really does. And it takes a lot less time to lose the weight than it did to gain it all, especially after weight loss surgery. But the path is sometimes a long one, sometimes a hard one. But the outcome is always beneficial.
Okay, so let's talk some specifics. What are some of the things that need to happen in order to consider getting bariatric surgery?
So when we see our patients, we not only see them for bariatric surgery, but for bariatric medicine. Okay. The successful programs are ones that are very global in the treatment of weight loss overall. We need to take all of the patient's past medical history into consideration and understand that they have a lot of things in their background which may or not be standard, and every patient is unique. But we do use some stratification methods, and those methods federally are known as the body mass index, or BMI. It's simply a measure of height over weight. And it's a measure of essentially body surface area. So if you're going to look at all comers who have body surface areas, even that's different. Arnold Schwarzenegger,
the discussion about whether the BMI works in terms of African Americans, Keith.
Yeah, Barbara and I were laughing about that. I was telling, I went on a weight loss brigade, and I just got into where my BMI says is normal.
Right.
But, everybody was telling me I was gotten too thin. And I'm like, well, the BMI still says I'm fat. And at the time, and I've had several people in my family who remain nameless who told me, no, but that BMI is not for us. And I'm like, well, but we're dying. And I said, and other people are living. I said, so that's where there's a difference, because, and I agree there are differences in terms of some people who have more muscular mass.
That's exactly right. So you look at a linebacker in the NFL, or Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime. Right. His BMI was 55. Yeah. That would be considered in the usual American to be obese. Mm-hmm. And by the way, we use some really horrible terms for this stuff. Yeah. The terms turn people off just to begin with. We use a term called morbid obesity. And that's the science of it. It's called that because there are a lot of quote-unquote comorbidities that go along with weight gain. These are the real problems here. The weight gain is one thing, but when you add high blood pressure, you add high cholesterol, you add diabetes, that's when people start dying. And that's when people start to lose years off of a life. And we're not talking 5 to 10 years. Dr. Newby gained 5 years back by going down the Virgin Islands just now. And Dr. Newby, I'd like to ask you, when do I get one of those vacations? I want to know when that happens. I want you to send me that memo.
Yeah, we'll talk about that offline.
All right. So, but, we're talking 10 to 15 years off of a patient's life that we're looking to give back with weight loss. But to answer your question, we use this BMI number to be able to stratify which patient or should qualify for the best treatment.
Okay.
For example, a BMI of 35 is a federal cutoff for weight loss surgery, meaning a BMI of 35 with high blood pressure or high cholesterol or diabetes. A BMI
so that'd be 35 and more.
And one comorbidity.
Okay.
A BMI of 40 with no comorbidities will usually qualify a patient for bariatric surgery. When we talk about qualifying, we're talking not only for the doctors themselves, the bariatric surgeons that do it, and the programs that we answer to, the American College of Surgeons and whatnot, but also for the insurance companies to pass through, and that's a whole nother issue there, and that's the reason why we have somebody in our office that does nothing but insurance, but to pass those patients along to have it funded.
So it's not about how much you weigh, as much as it is about the BMI number, in terms of whether you qualify.
Well, the BMI number does have a direct relationship to weight, but it more often has a relationship to body habitus. We're all built a little bit differently. Some people have it all in the center, mostly men. That's a metabolic problem. Women carry it out on the hips, and then the legs and whatnot. So, somebody could be thin up here up top, but then have a lot of weight in the bottom, which would still cause them to be overweight. But what we're doing here as bariatric surgeons is not trying to get somebody into bikini season. What we're trying to do here is to get them out of a life-threatening metabolic issue, heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, cancer. All these things play a role when weight goes up, because those cells that contain fat, lipid cells, also contain a lot of inflammatory factors which lead to atherosclerosis, cancer, blockage, etc., stroke, all these things. So we are not the body contouring surgeons.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. Have you had bariatric surgery? If you have and you've been successful with it, give us a call and let us know about your experience. If you're thinking about it and you have some questions, we'd love to hear from you. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Go ahead, Keith.
One of the things that I've found in people that want to have bariatric surgery, or at least want to be considered for it, I do believe the programs they have are very expert in that they go through more than just operations. They have to go through this process. Because some of them have emotional challenges, as well as physical challenges, and that all has to be spelled out prior to, because again, they have to make sure to keep expectations intact. Because some people, like I mentioned before we went on air, they think that they just get this and that's all they got to do at all, and they don't have to really work at it. In most programs, I'm not sure about the Riverside program, and it can be expanded on, is whether or not a lot of them will they have to lose a certain amount of weight prior to surgery, I guess, to show that they do have the motivation to actually achieve the goals. They have to go through this vigorous program, and then they have to show that they do have the motivation to do it. That's
exactly right. Our program has the same thing. Our program is set up in a way that we use a lot of preamble before surgery and a lot of post follow-up. But you're exactly right. The surgeries are one thing. The run-up to surgery is by far the most important. We offer a lot of behavioral health. The psychological issues surrounding morbid obesity and weight gain are as important or more important than the surgery itself.
So give us an example of what you're talking about.
Well,
then.
for example, when we have a patient come in, like Dr. Newby is just saying, we discuss all of the portions of our program, which include medical, conservative weight loss, and surgical weight loss, so that they have and every program will do this. They'll have some kind of information session where every aspect of weight loss medicine is described. When they make a decision to pursue weight loss surgery, then they will go through a battery of workup, and some of that is psychological, not testing, but what you said before, expectational kind of explanation. There are a lot of patients that come through which say, okay, I'm going to get weight loss surgery, and that's it. I can eat whatever I want. I'm going to lose all the weight, and it's going to be done. And you can Twinkie yourself right through a gastric bypass in a few months. And as a matter of fact, you can end up hurting yourself. And, you know, people ask about the complications of bariatric surgery. Is it dangerous? No, unless you get into something that you're not supposed to get into, typically. So, you know, we've all seen folks who have had the surgery who have eaten their way right through it. And what it is, you know, a big waste of a big operation. You know, this is something that's, you know, this is done with a lot of anesthesia workup and making sure patients are safe in the operating room and this and that. And it's unfortunate to see what would be called recidivism in our patients because they're just not paying attention. So they go through months of this.
So, you know, in the intro, I named all these different types: the sleeve, the lap band, and all the bypass, and so forth. From a doctor's perspective, how do you decide what you're going to do once you get inside?
That's a great question. So we make the decision before I actually get inside a patient. Okay, so
that's good to know.
So lest anyone believe that I am practicing surgery on the fly,
Flip a coin.
it does not happen that way. But that's a great question. We make the decision with the patient together. One thing that's for sure is that the patient has to subscribe to bariatric surgery and the lifestyle change that's about to happen for them. They also have to be comfortable with the surgery that they're getting. First things first, all of these surgeries are done laparoscopically. That's the state of the art. We do them with television cameras that are about the size of your pen over there. So we're talking 5-10 millimeters, and we're using a few ports to do these operations. It used to be that these operations would take 3, 4, 5 hours, and our patients would go to the ICU as a scheduled kind of thing, and they'd have these big incisions. No more. This is incisionless surgery. Our patients are walking about 3 to 4 hours after the operation.
3 to 4 hours.
And the operation takes about an hour or two to do. Wow. We make the decision based on the patient's past medical history. So, you know, if a patient, and then, of course, what the patient is looking for. Everybody's got a friend. Everybody's got some form of internet. Everybody's got a buddy that says, look, you need to get what I had. Get a bypass. You have to get this band. This band is the best thing ever. And they'll come and say, look, you can do whatever you want as long as there's a lap band. Okay, well, you know, we kind of describe to them all of the pros and cons of all these things, and we come to a consensus in the end. And that's how we kind of figure out what it is. But each surgery has their own, you know, highs and lows, and
well, can you describe for the ones that are most known?
Right.
Can you describe kind of what the differences are?
Sure. So again, all these surgeries are done without incisions.
Right.
No, there are places out there which do them with incisions. That's old days. We don't do that anymore. It comes with a lot of complications, a lot of post-op pain. So these are all laparoscopic surgeries. The 3 surgeries that are most commonly practiced in the United States are the laparoscopic Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, ROUX, or Roux-en-Y, the sleeve gastrectomy, and the adjustable gastric band. Now, of the 3 of those, the ones that are becoming the most popular are the sleeve and the bypass. The lap band operation is one that everybody knows about because we've all seen it on TV, and it's something that a lot of bariatric surgeons still perform, but most of us that are within the national community of bariatric surgeons who are trained in this are straying away from that a little bit. The reason being is that a lap band is a band that's placed around the upper portion of the stomach, and it's essentially a choke point. Where you eat, it slows down the transit of food into the stomach, and it makes your stomach kind of distend open and gives you that sense of fullness. the purpose of all these operations is to make it essentially so that you can last on a diet for a long, long time. And what you eat fills you up faster. So the background of it is that it's restriction. But an operation like a lap band, a choke point is only going to be a temporary fullness. So those patients aren't losing as much weight as those patients who have the others. The gastric bypass is an operation which involves making the stomach smaller and then routing around the portions of the intestine which usually absorb fats and sugars. So you don't absorb those things, but you do absorb the good proteins, and it fills you up faster. You become more efficient as a human machine. So we put you into essentially a Atkins-like ketosis, where the patients will use, instead of sugar for energy, fat for energy, and they're constantly this metabolic machine. So in an operation like that, which takes a couple hours to do, you're looking at, with diet and exercise, and it has to be exact, looking at losing about 85% of your excess body weight over the course of a year.
Wow.
That can be a lot of weight. So I tell my patients, okay, so how much is that? They'll ask. If you go to Lowe's and go and get yourself a 25-pound bag of concrete, carry that around Lowe's on your back for 30 minutes. Then go get another one and carry that around on your back for 30. That's about how much, that's probably for some patients spitting in the wind.
Wow.
That's just how much weight. The sleeve, to finish off on your question, is an operation where I just simply reduce the size of the stomach and make it into the shape of a banana. So you still feel the same restriction that you do with the gastric bypass, but without that bypass channel. So it used to be used as an operation for those patients who were really, really obese, super morbid obese, or those who were very high risk, or for those who were getting transplants, where they had to absorb their medications in a particular way and whatnot. The difference is that they'll lose that 85% of their excess body weight. They'll just do it over 2 years instead of 1 year. Yeah.
In terms of what defines like which one of those you recommend? Is there some specifics that say, yeah, this one is really better for the sleeve versus the Roux-en-Y?
So the Roux-en-Y operation is probably better for patients with a lot of comorbid conditions. Okay. Those patients which you've probably seen, Dr. Newby, with metabolic syndrome, okay, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol. That adds 55% mortality to your life right there, just instantly. So the operation of a Roux-en-Y bypass not only gives the pancreas, which helps with insulin and glucose metabolism, a rest, it has a very big hormonal aspect to it. So that those hormones in the human body which spark the pancreas to kind of dissolve blood sugars and whatnot are given a little bit of a break. For that operation, we see about a 90% resolution in metabolic syndrome. About half.
Meaning that it goes
away. When I say resolution, I mean cure. We are talking cure of these things.
No more high blood pressure, no more cholesterol?
Right. So, for example, to put it just out there, about half of the patients who come to us with diabetes, no matter what or how bad, they'll come to us with insulin pumps. Half of those patients who undergo Roux-en-Y bypass will never take their insulin again from the time of the operation. Half of them. High blood pressure, gone in about 3 months. High cholesterol, gone in about 6 months. Sleep apnea, where you stop.
Follow the regimen.
Right. As long as you follow the regimen.
The key,
well, that all makes sense when you think about the end result of what causes a lot of that. And a lot of that stuff is dietary based. I mean, that's the one thing that's the hardest thing for me to convince patients of is what you eat is what dictates how you are. Right. Meaning if because when he mentioned the Roux-en-Y, it creates this Atkins type metabolic syndrome, or I should say the actual what's happening when people eat a lot of sugars, it creates that insulin production creates all these byproducts. When people have type 2 diabetes, they're insulin resistant, which means that their pancreas is churning out insulin left and right. It's just not being absorbing the sugars like they once did, and the sugar levels start to rise and all the complications come up, and high insulin levels are some of the inflammatory things that creates coronary disease. So by him doing that bypass, what he's doing is creating this Atkins type scenario where they're eating they may eat some sugars, but it's not being absorbed. So then also the pancreas starts producing as much insulin. And actually, in fact, if you look at I remember I used to advocate Atkins. I know a lot of dietitians would kill me to hear me say that, but yeah, I found it works. But what happens, there was a head-to-head trial a few years ago looking at regular, just like Weight Watchers, where you just, kind of dietary calorie counting, all that, versus an Atkins type or low carb profile. And they compared weight loss and some other factors. And what they found was the weight loss amongst the two groups were similar, but the cholesterol profiles in the Atkins diet people or the low carb diet people were much better, just on diet alone. So when you talk about creating a scenario that you're taking the human factor out to some degree, that does impact significantly. So, I mean, that makes total sense hearing them say that as to what I see on the day-to-day practice.
That was the article in the New England Journal of Medicine talking about low-carb, moderate-fat diet. Right. And when we talk about the diet for our patients, we're talking virtually no sugars. That's why we can get rid of this diabetes so quickly, is that, we are putting a whole different shock to the system.
Which goes back to the change in diet. But hang on a second. We'll talk about that in just a minute. If you're just joining us, we're talking about bariatric or weight loss surgery with bariatric surgeon Dr. David Salzberg, director of the Riverside Weight Loss Center in Hampton, and my co-host, Dr. Keith Newby, cardiologist. And you may join our conversation at 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. We're here to answer any questions you may have about bariatric surgery. We'd love to hear from you. So, can you control the amount, especially with the bypass surgery, can you control the amount of weight that you lose? I mean, in other words, did your body just keep losing?
No, we don't have any folks turn into skeletons too often.
I always wondered about that, though.
So your body, the human body is smarter than we are, pretty much 100% of the time. It has a metabolic rate that is almost set, almost like a thermostat. And as the body starts to lose weight, the body's overall metabolism will start to slow, which is why after one of these surgeries, you'll see folks lose weight at a higher clip than a year out from surgery. So when they start to approach what is their quote-unquote healthy weight, which is nearby your ideal body weight plus your organs and all your fluids and all that good stuff, then it will start to slow down the weight loss automatically. So we have a lot of people in our practice who run marathons. They were not able to walk, and now they're running marathons. Wow. That is a 3,000 to 4,000 calorie expenditure right there. We have to be able to keep up with them, even after bariatric surgery. So we start adding in natural sugars towards the end. We can help kind of stall things out.
Wow, that's just incredible. So let's talk about after the surgery, some of the lifestyle changes and how family fits into that.
Right.
Because as we were talking a little bit before the show, you can't go back to eating the way you ate before you had the surgery. You can't go back to the volume. You can't go back to the same kinds of food. So address that a little bit for us.
I'd be happy to, unless you want to jump in on here, Dr. Newby, first, because I can see you chomping a bit
I'll throw my little 2 cents worth in there after that, but go ahead, do your thing.
All right. So, we were talking about telling it like it is before we started. After weight loss or surgery, this is a lifestyle change. Let's just call it what it is. You can't eat what you ate before. You can't eat what got you into trouble to begin with. Unfortunately, in life and in various communities, there is the culture of norm, where we find that people grow up, they're used to a certain thing, and they will continue along with that thing, and the families will too. The patients who do the best, by far, in my practice, are the ones who come with their husbands, with their families, the ones that say, hey, I don't believe in this. Make me believe. Tell me the data about this. Or even the ones who come in by themselves and say, look, I went home and talked about this with my such and such. I say, bring them in. The families that do the worst are the ones where I go to do their operation and I've only been working with the patient for 6 months before surgery. And then all of a sudden, there's a whole slew of people there on the day of surgery saying, what is this mess?
Right.
That doesn't work out well because of the concept of the enabler. And the enabler is very difficult to beat. So if you got the wife who's undergoing bariatric surgery and you've got the husband who isn't, the husband still likes Oreos. Yeah. And the husband still likes ice cream. So what you do is that you say, sir, I'm going to need you to get another cupboard and put all your stuff away because she cannot have this. And you need to understand that she is doing this for you. She wants to do this so that she can be around 15 years later so that you guys can enjoy and run around with your grandchildren. Mm-hmm. So please don't be so selfish as to bring her what you know is not right. And sometimes that works out and sometimes it doesn't. But, that's what support groups are for.
I like Dr. Salzberg. He's all right with me.
The phones are lit up. Let's go to Linda in Chesapeake. Hi, Linda. You're on the air.
My question is, does age play a part in this?
In having the surgery?
Yes.
Okay.
So the answer is yes at times. There are age cutoffs in particular, and each practice is different as to who gets what. We generally do this operation up until around the 70, 72-year-old age range. But everyone who comes to our practice is evaluated individually. So, there are plenty of 80-year-olds running around who are in pretty good health and who can run circles around lots of folks. An interesting point you bring up on the other end of the spectrum. What about kids? Yeah. 25% of this nation's pediatric population is overweight. 25%. Probably a good half to a quarter of that is obese. So there are a lot of overweight pediatric patients out there, and we happen to have a pediatric weight loss program for medical weight loss. But you have to be very careful in that population, especially in the college-age population, because as everybody knows, you go off to school, and then there's that 10-pound first year, and pizza doesn't really work out very well with the gastric bypass. So these have to be very mature young adults to be able to consider that. But, a lot of times, bariatric surgery for children is reserved for pediatric surgical hospitals.
Wow. Let's see. Tim joins us from Portsmouth. Hi, Tim. You're on the air.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
And my question is, my BMI is around 30, so I wouldn't qualify for the surgery. Is there another program for somebody like me?
The answer is absolutely yes. A lot of bariatric programs like ourselves are essentially what are metabolic centers. We treat weight loss not only with surgery, but with weight loss medicine. What that means is that you are given the advantage of having a physician look over your weight loss, a bariatric medical physician who's trained in this kind of thing, dietitians, exercise physiologists, behavioral health, so that your diet can be analyzed. We want to be able to get you the tools that you need to be able to carry on your weight loss throughout your entire life by giving you the right data. We tell you what to eat, we tell you the things to eat, and guide you on a weekly basis.
Okay, Tim, I hope that helps you out. Michelle joins us from Chesapeake. Hi, Michelle. You're on the air.
Hi. My question is, I had the surgery about 10, 11 years ago, the gastric bypass, and I've gained like 10, 15 pounds, which isn't bad because overall I lost 80. My question is, could I go in and do something again to help me out with my appetite? Is there like I don't know, something to tighten me up again?
Right.
I knew you were going to say that, Michelle.
Michelle, your question is, I get that a lot, and yes, you do. There is help for you out there. But first thing I want to say is congratulations, because you've done a great job. You're 10 pounds up, but you lost all that weight, and you must be feeling great. The answer to your question is, you ask a question about revisional bariatric surgery. Do we do this over and over and over again? And the answer is sometimes, if there's a technical problem with the operation. However, for pure weight loss, the surgery carries some risk for very little of the benefit overall. So the best thing to do is to get into one of these medical weight loss programs where you can be guided, and your diet is special, and we want to make sure that you get the proper diet, and we go from there.
Okay, Michelle, I hope that helps you out. That I knew she was going to say to tighten me up.
Well, you know something. Well, a lot
Go
of
ahead.
what I've found, and Dr. Salzberg can either agree or disagree on this, but part of that lifestyle change is so important to the overall plan. But in that, what I mean is example, every time I go on a mission to lose weight, I change what I eat. I've found that foods that are high in sugar make me hungry all the time, and then when I cut back on the sugars, if I focus more on proteins, like right now, all I pretty much eat is lean meat and some vegetable of sorts. And I don't get hungry. I really don't. I mean, I could, even though I know they say you're supposed to eat multiple small meals a day, if I do that, I'm going to be hungry all day long. I just, for me personally, I that's not my thing. I eat when I'm hungry. But I don't get hungry that much anymore because of what the changes I made were. And I found, but if you go in the grocery store, the majority of what you see are carbohydrate driven. Right. Go to most restaurants, the majority of what you see is going to be carbohydrate driven. And that is what I found gets us in trouble. It's just what's put in front of us, what we're taught to eat is stuff that unfortunately is not just bad for us, but it's like a vicious cycle. It perpetuates the problem because we get hungry, and then we get more, then we get hungry again, then we eat more, and it's just a vicious cycle. And that's just what I've seen. And again, if you see different, let me know, but that is what I see. It's just that lifestyle. Breaking that lifestyle chain is what needs to take place.
Lisa joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Lisa. You're on the air.
Hi. Well, I looked into getting the lap band. They got the information. They said I had to, go on a liquid diet for a week before the operation. Then I was on soft food for several weeks after the operation. And I'm going, hey, I could fast by myself without spending a lot of money. And I did. And I had a tummy tuck once. And all I got out of that was a great big scar.
Well, Lisa, let me ask you this question. You said you went on that diet without the surgery. Were you successful in your weight loss?
Yes.
How much did you lose?
I have so far, in the last few years, lost 50 pounds.
Congratulations.
Right. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So,
congratulations, Lisa.
Well, I think what I think the whole point of the bariatric surgery is not so much, again, as a magic bullet. It's just to help certain types of people. And again, the whole point, that's why I think they put you through this program of the behavioral medicine, because you really think about it, eating disorder is like any other addiction some people eat for different reasons. Some is psychological, some is they're just hungry. But a lot of it, I think, is there's a psychological play in all that. And if you can achieve the goal, because I think their goal is what I would imagine is not to say, I don't think there's any bariatric surgeon say, okay, let me try to make $1 million by operating on all these people. No. Their focus is to say, okay, can you achieve the goal without surgery? And if you can, great. They're going to take a step down. But if you cannot, but they see the motivation and your willingness to try and to be successful to some degree, then they can get you over the hump.
Well, you bring up a lot of good points there. Number one, you're right. This is addiction medicine in a lot of ways. But in terms of how we're going to lose weight and what bariatric surgery will do, there have been a lot of studies out there which have looked, and the last caller was special in that she's lost so much weight and kept it off for the long term. That is unfortunately not what we see as the usual. The National Institute of Health back in the 90s did a study looking at all of the bariatric medical commercial programs, surgical programs, everything. And it showed a couple of things. It showed that, number one, we go on a lot of diets throughout our lifetime. And like you're saying, this becomes a cycle. We go on a diet, and what the content of the diet is actually not that bad. The problem is the amount of food that you're given in the diet is a little bit. The bottom line here, and this is just the plain bottom line, is that in order to lose weight, you have to burn more calories than you take in. That's physics. That's law. You can't beat it. There's no way around it. There's no special card. There's no special pill. It has to be that way. If you reverse that equation, you'll stop losing weight or you'll gain weight. So the amount of food that you're given in any particular diet is a little bit. So we start to starve. Humans are conservators. We are always getting ready for the apocalypse. So we like to store things so that we're ready for the great freeze. But the freeze is not now, as it is very hot outside. And we do want to keep healthy and lose weight, and we start to binge at the end of the diet. And we find that about 97% of people who go on a diet not only fail that diet in the course of a year, but they end up gaining more weight at the end of the diet than they had at the beginning. And that turns into that cycle. What we're trying to do for those folks who have medical problems that are associated with weight gain is to cut that cycle. Now, if that cycle can be cut with medical weight loss, diet, and exercise, that is the way to do it. Okay? That is the first start. And that is why we have, for every patient, medically supervised weight loss before they get their operation. But if it doesn't work out that way, we need to stop that situation. And we do that by giving them the opportunity with which to tolerate a very low-calorie diet.
There is a study that was just recently done, and they were saying that African Americans are less likely to take advantage of the surgery as an option, as a part of the cultural thing. And it goes back to what we were talking about with family and so forth, this whole idea of, particularly for women, that the whole idea of being thick, of men appreciating a larger woman in terms of African.
Thank you for starting us out on that. I didn't say it.
I know. That's why I brought it up. And I'm not exactly a small woman myself, so I brought it up. But the point is, culturally, if that's an issue, and these women are carrying around things like high blood pressure and cholesterol and so forth, I mean, that it's a mindset that we've got to change in our culture.
So I get a lot of patients who come into my office who said, I want to get this surgery, I want to lose weight, but not too much. And the husband is sitting there saying, I don't want her to lose that. I don't want to lose that. You would make me too thin. And I say, okay, well, your healthy weight is 160 pounds. Oh, no, I don't want to. I want to be 200. Well, unfortunately, the point of all this is to lose enough weight to drop the comorbidities. That's what we're looking for. We don't see any sense, Dr. Newby and I, in having a patient sitting out there with diabetes who is going to have renal failure, who is then going to go on dialysis and then have a 50% mortality for every 5 years they sit on that machine. So I think that there's a lot of education that goes into this and a lot of understanding and a lot of, like we're doing now, getting the information out there. We have to let people know that the problem is real. The problem is epidemic, and the problem is deadly. Okay? So we need to get that to be understood. Then we need to say, okay, yes, there is a cultural issue. Number one, a lot of patients in our community are scared to go to the doctor.
To check it out, right.
And are scared
they don't want to know what they're going to hear.
Right. So, you see a patient who, in 1990 or 1980 had a bad experience with that, means that every doctor who does bariatric surgery is going to hurt me. Well, it's not so much these days. We do this, again, with TV cameras. This operation takes a couple of hours. The risk of this operation, in actuality, is less than the risk of childbirth in any given hospital when it's done by a bariatric surgeon. The risk overall is less than 1.5% of any major complication. So the riskiness of it is not exactly what the popular culture would say it would be. But back to what we were talking about, the family and the home, we're used to a certain thing. We see it all the time. We go for what we're used to.
We got to turn that around.
Yeah, his point to the issue, going back earlier to, that the amount of caloric intake is going to be directly proportional. I mean, he is so on point. I mean, that's the argument I have with folks all the time. The thing I hear the most is, but doc, I don't hardly eat anything. I'm saying, Chief, you're eating in more than you're putting out in terms of expenditure of calories. Because remember, what's your activity level like? Pushing the remote control button ain't cutting it. And that is the hardest thing to get people to understand. And then it's all relative. Because I'm like, when you say not that much, what does that mean? What does not that much mean? Because for me, it may be you have a little slither of this. your definition that may be, well, I used to eat 5 plates of food, now I only eat 3, you know, and that is all relative.
And you can go to one of these health food places and go to, get one of these salad bars and get yourself a 1,500 or 2,000 calorie salad. If you're not careful. By the time you finish loading up all the croutons, well, yeah, it's a salad.
And the bacon bits and
dressing.
Dressing, yeah.
That's exactly right.
What I want to hear from each of you, and we got about 2 minutes left, to encourage people to just go to the doctor and get started. What would you say, Dr. Salzberg, to get somebody to just get up off the couch and go get checked?
So realize that these problems are important, and they can hurt you over the course of your life. We're talking about problems, again, that will take years off your life. It depends on what's important. Is it important to live 15 more years and be with your family, or is it more important to have McDonald's?
Okay. That's Dr. David Salzberg with Riverside Weight Loss Center. Thank you so much for joining us. Keith, you got the last word.
And ditto on that, but just to let everybody know, if you know you have these comorbid factors, if you have high blood pressure, if you have diabetes, don't just have this attitude to say, well, like my blood pressure is good for me or my diabetes level is good for me. A lot of times it's not good for anybody. Don't lead yourself down that fantasy road of thinking you're healthy if you're not. If you know, especially for your children, you're living for your spouse, you're living for your children. And if you are overweight, a lot of times your children would be too, because they're living the same lifestyle you're leading.
Okay. Dr. Keith Newby, we'll see you next month, and we'll be right back.
I'm Gwen Eiffel of the PBS NewsHour and Washington Week, and you're listening to Another View on 89.5 WHRV-FM.
Very nice, Gwen Eiffel. Thank you for that. The year was 1988, and music producers Thomas McElroy and Denzel Foster decided they wanted to create a female singing group. They had 3 criteria. They wanted the singers to be beautiful, smart, and above all, talented. The end result, a group they named En Vogue, whose flawless harmonizing hit Billboard's top 10 chart time and time again in the 90s. Over the years, the group has gone through some restructuring, but their amazing sound has remained intact. This weekend, they'll be performing in Town Point Park as the headliner for this year's Hampton Roads Pride concert. Our Lisa Godley spoke to one of the newer members of the group, Rona Bennett, about being a part of En Vogue and their upcoming performance in Hampton Roads.
It's hard to think about 90s music without mentioning the amazing vocals of En Vogue. So just imagine singing songs that were iconic in their own right and being a member of a group you admired and watched from the audience while they performed before thousands. That's Rona Bennett's story.
I saw them years ago. I think it was in Washington Park in Chicago performing. And I would have never thought that I would end up being a performing member of the group years later. To me, it speaks to how random life can be. So many things have happened like that to me in my life. And I was even talking to somebody the other day. I was like, right now you don't know Oprah, but in 5 years she could be like your best friend. I mean, I know it sounds far-fetched, but at the end of the day, that's how random life can be. You just never know what path you might end up on and where your desires might lead you.
The desire to perform has been in Rona Bennett's blood for a very long time.
The bug bit me early, and my grandmother was the one that kind of noticed that I was very involved with the arts. She was the one that was saying, maybe you guys want to pay attention to her. But my mom, who's really big on education, my dad too, but my mom was really big on it, would ask me, what's your plan B? And I was like, I didn't have a plan B. My plan A was to just perform and do what I wanted to do. And I guess one day we were driving down the street, and I turned to her with all sincerity, and I said, Mom, what can you do for me? And she knew at that point that I was really serious about where I wanted to go, and my parents decided to support me from that point forward.
Bennett was a Disney Channel Mouseketeer, appearing alongside such recognizable names as Justin Timberlake, Christina Aguilera, and Britney Spears. She joined En Vogue in 2003. The new chapter in her life began while cutting a demo for a couple of music producers. One of the men told her that En Vogue was looking for a new singer and suggested she audition.
And I ended up meeting with Denzel Foster, who's one of the founding members of the group. And I showed him some of the things that I had been doing because I'm a songwriter as well. And when he heard the material, he thought, I think you should go up there to the Bay and meet Cindy and Terry. And when I did, that was it.
When the ladies aren't on tour, Bennett says she's busy creating, from writing music to writing books. She's about to release her 5th self-help book. Rona Bennett describes herself as a personal power coach whose desire is to help people conquer their fears, gain confidence, and expand their perspectives.
My dad just passed away from mesothelioma, lung cancer, and I'm also sharing an experience that I went through that I have yet to talk about in public, but I'm sharing it in this next book, and that was something I experienced last year. So all of these things, when I experience it, if I feel like it can benefit someone to read it, I'll share it.
But Rona Bennett has also been bitten by another bug, acting. She starred in UPN's Homeboys in Outer Space and has done guest spots on Martin, Living Single, and The Single Guy. She recently played a villain in a sci-fi short film.
I would love to get back into either situation comedy, but I've never done I've never been a series regular on a drama. That's also very interesting to me as well. So most aspects of television I can really appreciate when it comes to scripted television. I'd love to get back into that.
But today, her sights are set on Hampton Roads as she prepares for this Saturday's free concert in Town Point Park as En Vogue headlines Pride Fest 2015.
We love doing the Pride concert because the energy is off the chart. I don't know, it's like everybody seems to be so engaged and happy and proud and so supportive, and they're just ready to party. And that, we already come out there with that in mind, but when we get that kind of response and that kind of energy coming to the stage, it only takes things up, to the next level. So I would say, people can come anticipating having a good time.
For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
Pride Fest 2015 begins at 7 tonight with a block party at Scope in downtown Norfolk. Things kick back up tomorrow at noon at Town Point Park, and En Vogue hits the stage at 5 p.m. The concert is free and open to the public. And that's our show for today. You can always find the podcast of Another View on our website, anotherviewradio.org, where you can also sign up for our eView newsletter, a once-a-week reminder of upcoming shows. It's time for me to take a much-needed vacation, so I'm gone for the next 2 weeks. Enjoy the Capitol Steps next Friday as they help you celebrate the 4th of July holiday. And producer Lisa Godley leads the roundtable on a lively discussion the week after that. I'll be back with you again on July 17th. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Thanks so much to producer Morgan Chase of Hearsay fame, sitting in for Lisa Godley. Victor Bowen is our audio engineer, and Chantel Davis answered our phones. I'm Barbara Hamm Lee. Hey, guess what? Another View is up for 2 Virginia Association of Broadcaster Awards tonight, and WHRO as a whole is up for 11, so wish us luck. Happy 4th, everyone, and we'll get together again in 2 weeks for Another View.